Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. When The Searchers was released in 1956, this country was still bruised from the effects of World War II. Who would have known at the time of its release that John Ford's classic movie would become one of the most significant American films of all time, with this being one of John Wayne's greatest performances ever, with his character being one of the most impressively written characters in the history of the Western genre. The movie features a story of a troubled, lonely, and unapologetic ex-Confederate soldier who undergoes an exhausting quest to find his niece, who's been kidnapped by the Comanche after butchering her family. In this masterpiece, Wayne's character of Ethan labors tirelessly to find the girl, but at the same time being driven by an unflinching wish to kill her. In his view, she had been tainted by being adopted by the natives. The extent of his disgust and hatred towards these Indians is present on several occasions throughout the film. He not only hates them, he despises them to the degree of taking the trouble of learning about their beliefs in order to hurt them more deeply. Ford knew when he made the film and breathed realism into the story that he had created a thoroughly moving picture that was extremely instrumental in the value of the American cinema. The movie is deep psychologically and also self-reflective and intriguing, with some of the most visually captivating shots ever put on the big screen. Now, I've done, I think, 2 other videos on this film, but there is just so much information on it, and it's such an important film that it's worth a revisit, and it seems to never get old. The famous project stars John Wayne, Jeffrey Hunter, Vera Miles, Ward Bond, and Natalie Wood. And upon its release, it was a commercial and critical success, and really is considered one of the greatest and most influential films that has ever been made. The movie is primarily set in the plains of northwest Texas, but it was actually mostly filmed in Monument Valley. Some additional locations that were used for filming was Mexican Hat, Utah, and Bronson Canyon in Griffith Park in L.A. The film was shot in the VistaVision widescreen process, making the cinematography in it just surround the viewer. The director, Ford, originally wanted to cast Fess Parker, whose performance as Davy Crockett on television had sparked a national craze. But at that time, Parker was under contract with Walt Disney, and he refused to allow it. Not only did he not allow it, he didn't even tell Fess Parker about the offer at all. The screenplay was adapted by Frank S. Nugent from a novel by Alan LeMay from 1954 that was first serialized as a short story in late fall 1954 issues of the Saturday Evening Post. At that point, it was titled The Avenging Texans, and it was based on the actual Comanche kidnapping of Cynthia Ann Parker, a young white girl in Texas. 25 years later, after she was recaptured, she never adjusted to life among whites at all, eventually starving herself to death after the illness and death of her remaining child. The director, Ford, was known for his terrible temper, and he was just an unsavory guy, a great filmmaker, but not a very pleasant person. And he had a habit of playing cruel practical jokes on his cast and crew. But during the filming of this movie, he took a real liking to John Wayne's son, Patrick. For some reason, Ford was just crazy about him. At some point during the production, everyone got the wrath of John Ford. He was pretty terrified of the movie-making process, and Ford could have made it terrible on this young actor, but he didn't. When the film came up by the American censors for approval, they attempted to have them replace some words in it, changing those words to darn and heck, which were mainstream and used by the film industry at that time. But the recent introduction of the second revision of the production code kept the word damn and hell in its final release. Now, there are just tons of rumors about things that happened on the set. One of them that pops up is about Ward Bond being bitten by a rattlesnake while filming in the Utah desert. It's said that the cast and crew then watched as the real-life Indians that were in the film sucked out the poison from his leg. One of the others that you always hear about is that during production, a Navajo child became seriously ill with pneumonia and needed urgent medical attention. The story goes that John Wayne had his own airplane on location and had his pilot take the little girl to a hospital. And for this deed, the Navajos then named him the Man with the Big Eagle. Now, Lana Wood played the young Debbie Edwards, and Natalie Wood, who was Lana's older sister by 8 years, played the teenage Debbie Edwards. But in order for the younger sister to get her role in the film, she had to go through what she felt like was a grueling audition. She was ushered into a room where she was introduced to John Wayne and the director John Ford. But instead of rehearsing a scene from the script with the two performers, Ford immediately issued one command to Wayne. He told him to lift her up, please. Wayne stood up, and as Lana looked at him, she felt like he reached the ceiling. He bent over, grinned, and rubbed his huge hands together, picked her up, and never once stopped smiling at her. He then set her down, and Wayne and Ford were happy with the results, and she ended up getting the role. Go back and take a look at this classic Ford film. It's always a fun watch. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.